Previously on Dark Souls. Oh my god, wow. You please stop f***ing me with that. Oh my god, you have got to be f***ing kidding me. No! Now I had a real hard question to answer. How the hell do I get out of here? Is what a lot of people said when I did a review of Elden Ring. But now I'm back to talk shit about your favorite game. PS4 version of the game gets a solid 9 out of 10. We left off with me at the bottom of a giant hollow tree with a dragon for a head and no way to teleport out. I explored the depths, hoping for some back door or a shortcut, but I was disappointed! You probably won't be surprised to hear this, but there is no back door out. There's one door, and that door is way at the top of where you came in. So I set out to... Oh! I just f***ed myself up. So I... Keep me company, so... Oh, cool. I made my way through the... Oh, Christ, no. No! No! It's not terribly hard to get back up the tree and out to the surface so long as you don't screw up doing certain things like flubbing a dodge, using a dragon head instead of a flask, or dropping into an abyss. And if you can do all that and run past the basilisk to the ladder, you're almost guaranteed to get out alive. And honestly, that goes for just about any level in this game. Once you know the route to the exit, you're fine. Just make a beeline to the boss and the exit and you'll avoid the fights and therefore the challenge of the game. This hasn't changed. They addressed this in Dark Souls 2 by making some of the fights mandatory before you could challenge the boss, or at least they attempted to make it harder to just run around the enemy. But DS1 and DS3 have all opted to go the other way, and frankly, I'm glad they did it that way. That shit was part of the tedium of Dark Souls 2. It was the constant fights you had to partake in just to get another chance at the boss. Now, you may feel differently. You may like it that they have you go through the gauntlet each and every time, and there's something to say for that because by the 4th or 5th go at a boss, you'll have the level memorized, and you'll slowly get better and better at it until you can basically no-hit the level and get to the boss with all your flasks. But you see, the enemies in a level, they're not the most challenging thing about the level. Navigating the collision is. Ugh, bitch. God damn it, this shit. Why, man? This is so dumb. Like, who the didn't think about this? Yeah, you know what? This is retarded, man. Come on. Oh my god, I can't even jump. Oh my god, this is so stupid. It's not even a ledge! It's just a step! He could literally just put his foot up and he would climb up. I think this is the only way to get up here. Oh my god, that was god damn. You want to talk about something that'll pucker your balloon knot? Oh shit, I went the wrong way, and now I'm stuck. Once I got out of the tree and back to the loving embrace of the poison swamp, I took the old dragon head out for a spin on these annoying blood bug bastards. Oh hell yeah. Now I had never seen spider mommy milkers before, and I gotta say, pretty nice. Like, I know intuitively I'm not supposed to have any movement down there, but I do, you know? I'm both proud and ashamed of it. Now I'd like to go get myself a glass of milk, but some of us done got cursed on our way down that dagnabbit tree. This means that guy, whoever he might be, is gonna have to walk all the way back up to the first bell he ever rang and buy an item that he should have bought when he was there in the first place. And it was... Oh shit. No, no, no! Ah! No, 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 dude, no. That's not what I want. That's what I want.
Greetings, and welcome back.
Fun. And all that fun aside, now that I have the curse healed, it's time for me to go all the way back down to where I was. This game doesn't have fast travel until you get a specific item.
Damn, look at damn titties!
That item allows you to bamf your way in and out of a select number of bonfires throughout the world, unlike the system you'd see in DS2, which allowed you to teleport to any location you've activated a bonfire from, at the very beginning of the game. Now, I welcomed this change in the sequel, and so did most people, but now that I've thought about it, not having fast travel in the beginning, it does something to the game's balance in that it makes the game harder but more intentional. When I went to see that guy for my curse cure, notice that I didn't just buy one of them and move on, I bought two. I wouldn't have done that if I had the ability to teleport to him. There wouldn't be a need for it. And if I knew I wasn't going to have to walk all the way back to him if I got cursed, I wouldn't be so bummed out when I did get cursed because I could just take care of that the moment I hit a bonfire. Sure, it's more convenient to the player, but the inconvenience is the reason curse is so reviled and feared. If you don't have that, what does the player have to fear? Half of their health missing? Having your health cut in half doesn't mean shit if you could just bamf in front of the guy, use a couple souls, and buy what you need. So that means all of this stuff that was changed in later titles was changing an intentional design choice that was made here. If they changed anything and dumbed it down, it's because people complained long enough and loud enough that they perceived the design choice they made as unreasonable. And under player pressure, they changed it. In my Elden Ring review, I mentioned that I think they need to stay away from nerfing bleed. Then 4 days later, they nerfed bleed. Why did they nerf bleed? Not because of PvE, but because of those PvP nerds complaining. And just like in your online shooter or MMO, the people ruining the single player experience are the same 12-year-olds calling your mom a slut in Call of Duty. Now, Spider Mommy goes down like a light beer, especially when you've been playing this game as long as I have, but her mechanics are pretty interesting. When you engage her at distance, she doesn't have a way to counter you. She'll try, but if you're using, say, a Great Soul Arrow, sometimes when she tries to gain ground on you, before she could do anything, a Soul Arrow bukkakis her chest and staggers her. At distance, she tries to close on you and either vomit lava on you or take a swipe at you with that blade of hers. She has two attacks at melee distance. She has a swipe, which hits at a downward angle, but if you go up on a slope, it'll miss you by a country mile. So having the high ground is the level side of the difficulty equation. The second attack she has is a stabbing attack. Both of these attacks use considerable wind-up, and they're designed to throw your rhythm off. They designed her to be a sort of wall to progress. The game wants you to watch the enemy and dodge when you see them wind up, so the delay is long enough to hit you when you try to dodge a second time when you realize that you dodged too early. And some of these attacks have a wind-up that's so long that it's long enough to perfectly hit you if you panic spam dodges. If you get to her face, she has a repellent move where she hunkers down and explodes. She could vomit in the line in front of her, but her range is fairly short, and she will, at times, rear up with her forelegs and stomp down in a little AoE explosion. This fight is here to punish melee fighters who use a shield because a lot of her attacks go through shields, and some of them blow through them completely and knock you down. So if you've been bullying the enemies up to this point, Quelaag will have you running away, panic dodging, looking for an opening. And if you're doing too much running around and you aren't punishing her at distance, she has a move that will send her leaping across the room like a jumping spider on a mosquito. Also, if you're fat rolling with her, she's gonna bully you pretty bad. So the reason I like this fight so much is about the mechanics, really. She has interesting ones that might force a complacent player to change their tactics and maybe even their gear to deal with her. And it's nice when the game forces a change up like this. It keeps the gameplay fresh. She's got a nice rack too. This game has a great example of how any other game can get away with hiding things from the player. But because the servers were down when I played this, the one great benefit this game's online component gave to those of us that would rather die than summon another player to help us had for actually engaging with the game online, and that's the message system. It's one of the greatest design gifts that FromSoft has given us to date. It allows other players to leave messages for you strewn about the world. Normally I do my first playthroughs with these messages turned off, and first playthrough, frankly, kinda sucks, because not having access to messages ensures that I miss a lot of hidden stuff that would normally have been great for my build. For instance, this secret wall leads to another super secret covenant that has a very easy covenant reward to grind out. See this spider lady? She's the other spider lady's sister. If you agree to help her, you'll need to feed her humanity. The more humanity you feed her, the higher your rank in the covenant will climb, but the more alive she will also seem. Earlier on, you might have noticed that rats tend to drop humanity. If you figured out that humanity will increase your item drop chance, you might end up going back to the depths to grind out humanity. If you do that and return to Quelaag to feed her all your humanity, she will grant you access to 2 different spells, Great Chaos Fireball and Chaos Storm, both of which are well worth the effort, and you would have never found them if you hadn't been smacking every wall with your weapon, or if you weren't online and paying attention to the messages that people leave behind. This is how I found Quelaag's sister in the first place. Somebody left a message, and I'm eternally grateful to that person. There's something incredibly rewarding about finding a secret covenant, maxing out your rank, and gaining access to some of the best items or spells in the game. Because not only does she give you spells, but she actually does something that's infinitely more important. She opens up a shortcut to Lost Izalith. It's just another way that the game gives you so many options and so many ways to overcome certain challenges that the devs put in your way purposefully and then gave you a back door through. Basically design sequence breaking. Alright, so I want to talk about the combat in this game in depth because it really is the best thing about it. It puts the action in action RPG, it's the jam on your toast, it's the thing that brings the boys to the yard. You got a lot of tools at your disposal when it comes to defense, and each defensive measure has multiple ways of expressing itself. Take the dodge roll for instance. You can use it to dodge away from an attack and counter, but due to the invulnerability frames, you're also able to dodge through an enemy's attack and end up behind them. The dodge roll in Dark Souls is a very deliberate thing that I think we take for granted anymore. With recent entries into the series, dodging has gone from a precision mechanic that punished panic rolling heavily to something that you can spam, and all they did was change the stamina cost to dodging. This injures the game in 2 ways. Firstly, it makes investing in stamina kind of worthless because you could dodge all day and hardly ever run out of stamina. The second injury was to the precision nature of dodging. Dodging in Dark Souls was something that, if you didn't invest heavily into it, you would probably be able to pull it off twice before getting winded. In Dark Souls, if you get winded, you're basically unable to perform any basic action for a set amount of time until your stamina starts refilling. It takes longer to refill the more your action bar took your stamina into the red, which means you could possibly have to wait until a minus 50 stamina bar starts filling up into the positive before you're able to act again. To make things even worse, if you're wearing heavier armor, the heavier your armor, the slower your stamina regens, and the rate at which you recover when winded. There's a lot to consider there. In Dark Souls 3, however, a roll consumes much less stamina, and I think this was done in order to push people over into a more roll-based playstyle. They even simplified the stamina recovery speed, and it was no longer on a per armor set basis, but was determined by how fat you were. So if you were heavyweight and fat rolling, your stamina recovery time both above and below 50% burden is affected. So all you need to do to roll infinitely was stay within a medium burden, or even better, light burden, and you could spam roll into victory. This means that you could roll around in full havels without a terrible penalty if you invested in encumbrance. And you can kind of tell with the way that bosses were designed in DS3 that shield was out, dodge was in, whereas Dark Souls was much more of a choose your own adventure kind of game. There was no wrong answer from a gameplay standpoint. There were just different flavors of gameplay, and it was up to you to decide which was yummiest. But it doesn't end there. If you don't hold any direction and you hit the dodge key, your character will do a backstep. That can escape an attack, and if you hit the attack key right after you do that, you'll launch forward into a quick attack. It can be used as both a dodge and a counter attack. For shields, there's blocking. Depending on the weapon, a block will sometimes knock an enemy off balance, allowing you to counter attack while they're vulnerable. But you can also use it to totally negate damage. It costs less stamina than a dodge roll, but if you are hit while low on stamina, it will knock you off balance and leave you defenseless. The block also comes with a parry that you can use to get massive damage, and the timing is almost identical to the dodge roll, so you could technically do things like dodge roll one attack, then parry the next, if you know the timing of the enemy and what combos they use, that is. Then there's this whole host of defensive spells which can help you avoid damage. Each of these defensive techniques can be ranked on a level of difficulty. For instance, a beginning player might start with a shield and turtle up until they meet the Capra Demon. Then as you get better at the game, you might start dodge rolling occasionally, then you might start doing it full time in order to two-hand a weapon and kill enemies quicker. Then when you know the game, you might throw in some parries now and then to get that massive bonus damage. It's stagger's the learning process, and honestly, you could get through the game using any of these techniques alone, save for parrying, which only works on humanoids less than 2 times your size. And just like with level design and loops, having more options can make the difference in whether or not a game is fun to play past the first playthrough, or if you end up dumping hundreds of hours into it because it feels like there's always something else to get good at. Now, I don't know if I've ever told you of my love of spears, but I love them, and this game has them, as well as other thrusting weapons. There's blunt weapons, sharp weapons, ranged weapons, and items that act like weapons, and each weapon has a specific moveset. So the choice to use one weapon over another is not just to line goes up or down. A weapon that does less damage but has a better moveset and length is almost always better. But it's not even just down to that. Some weapons, like my favorite giant club, do things like flatten an opponent the same size as you, and using this against phantoms, well, just look for yourself. Finding a weapon that has an ability to make your enemy vulnerable is great, because it can be used to recover your health while the enemy picks themselves up off the ground. So while the club is big and slow and hard to control at first, the benefit of not only flattening someone, but also being able to adjust your attack angle mid-swing means you might still be able to hit that guy that tried to roll away. There's a ton of depth to the combat just in terms of movesets. For contrast, look at a game like Skyrim. That combat consists of you swinging your sword and blocking until you or the enemy is at 0 health. One might even be so ballsy as to say it's boring. I wouldn't say that, but someone might. It's like that because for the most part, all melee weapons behave in the same way, or at least feel that way. The problem is compounded by the fact that there's so few weapon varieties. Swords, daggers, mace, axe, and variations of the same type, but you swing an axe the same way you swing a knife, the same way you swing a sword. So really, there's not a whole lot of difference save for maybe power attacks, but even those look the same. With Dark Souls, you have a ton of variety, and best of all, variables on top of that variety that keep things nice and fresh. For instance, a katana, when wielded in your offhand, has a faster recovery time after a parry than a medium shield. A thrusting weapon is even better. Then there's weapons like the washing pole and a dragon tooth, on top of weapons like the normal size club, which lets you get a leaping strike with the push of a single button. All of these factors, plus the fact that it has spears, is the reason the combat is so damn compelling to me. Then you add on top of all this the fact that these encounters are designed so exquisitely, and well, I mean, you get what I'm saying, right? Then there's consumables like daggers, there's poison daggers, toxic daggers, pointy daggers, and they add a little spice to an encounter when you want to keep your distance, but don't want to carry a bow around because it makes your ass look fat. Then there's bombs. And these things have multiple uses, and against certain enemies like oozes and rats, they annihilate. Then there's gold pine resin, and the various coatings for your weapons. They add damage to a weapon, and depending on the resistance of a boss, could tank their health pretty quick. There's just an enormous amount of options, and every playthrough I learn something new about what can be used on who to gain an advantage, and it's the main reason I keep coming back to Daddy. Magic comes in 3 flavors. There's regular ass magic, divine ass magic, and fiery ass magic. There's over 70 spells in the game, and each one can either be bought from vendors found throughout the world, and some can be only found by doing quests. Finding these spells is like a quest in and of itself, because the vendors of these spells are all hanging out in different places, usually hidden throughout the game world. Each of these spells have different effects and behave differently when cast, and each has its own strengths and weaknesses. For instance, soul arrows have a small hitbox and can often be seen ignoring solid objects. Sometimes they just fly right over somebody's head. You think they go where you're targeting, but you know, sometimes the spells just do their own thing, man. They may be unreliable, but they do decent single target damage and have many uses before they run out. While a soul spear is a faster moving projectile with a much larger hitbox. Homing spells will hover over your head and seek out a target when they're within range, so they're useful to cast when approaching an enemy. Then there's the utility spells and buffs. There's a reason people love this game, and the combat and the versatility of each system is a really big part of that recipe. There's no one way to play a magic build. There's no one way to play a fighter. There's no one way to do anything in this game because the systems are a lot like the level design. They twist into one another and loop back in on themselves. For instance, by using Velka's talisman, you can use faith to scale the potency of your sorceries. and you can cast pyromancy no matter if you use faith or intelligence. The game gives you an insane amount of freedom with all this build versatility. What the fuck? Oh, come on. Of course, I couldn't lock on to him, but he still had the ability to jump and hit me from where he was. Dude, oh my fucking god. And that brings me smoothly over to Sen's Funhouse. Sen's Fortress is a natural progression to the puzzle combat design that we've experienced so far, and it cranks the difficulty up a few notches. And it seems that it takes a lot of first-time players off guard, and even though this is likely my 9th playthrough, I still died over and over here. Oh my fucking god! Ugh! Okay. Okay, yeah. Yep. Oh, fuck. Oh, he got me with the fucking spell. Nope. Fuck! God damn it. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I love Sen's Fortress, and I know that might be considered heresy in some circles, but this is where the game peels the sack skin off its inner thigh, pulls up its pants, and says, okay, you've mastered the combat when it's just you and the enemy. Now it's time to throw in traps, ranged ambush enemies, and tiny pathways overlooking insta-kill drops. This is the part that sucks, man. Nuh-uh, it's awesome. Here's why. That feeling when you're close to achieving what you just felt was impossible, and you feel that sudden burst of joy as the dopamine hits your brain like you gacked up a line. And then the game confronts you with another challenge just like the one before, but different in a slight way. Now there's a ranged guy at the end of the blades that you can't lock onto from the doorway, who demands that not only do you worry about the timing of the blades, but now you gotta worry about the timing of his attacks. The game is forcing you into an even more uncomfortable position. When you finally accomplish this challenge, you move on to an even crazier set of escalating challenges, all of which are borrowing elements from previous challenges to spice up whatever challenge they've set up. And notice that right after this challenge, the game has a chest sitting between you and the doorway. And what likely will happen the first time you come down this tiny walkway, you'll probably get tunnel vision, stare directly at the chest, and totally miss this little pressure plate sitting right in front of you. If the blades didn't get you, the lightning strike snake will. If he doesn't get you, this trap will get you. And each time you die to something, you start the whole process over again until you can complete the gauntlet all in one go. It's brutal and at times sadistic, but when you finally get to the bonfire, you'll feel like a god, man. A goddess among women. It'll be the most exciting thing you've done all day. And that's a little sad. The next encounter's a great one. What you have is a snake guy coming down a walkway, and as you're coming through the door, blammo, hit by a rolling boulder. You can hear the trap before you see it, so the auditory cue, which is loud and ever apparent, gives you ample warning, and it foreshadows something that you know you're going to have to deal with later. So when you see the boulder come hurtling past you as you're about to exit onto a tiny walkway, not only do you know what to do beforehand, but you know that the risk of death is very much present. But here's the thing. I have a feeling that in any other Dark Souls game, there would have been a bonfire by now. Most of the newer Dark Souls games have a habit of overplacing bonfires, and Elden Ring did this to a ridiculous degree. I swear to God, there was at least 2 instances where I had one bonfire, one room, and then I entered the next room and there's another bonfire. It's not a shortcut. There's literally just 2 open rooms connected to each other with a bonfire and another bonfire. I don't know what the hell is up with that. And the length of this challenge is both intimidating and appropriate. The reason why your mad dash up this ramp is so terrifying is because of all the progress you stand to lose at this point. How painful it is to start over, all coupled together with the fact that this boulder is very likely gonna one-shot you. You only get one chance at this, so this makes you very careful. Makes you scout the area ahead for a place to hide from the boulder, and once you have the timing of the boulder and a place to hide, you can breathlessly stride up the ramp and into a room that has a trap and a snake boy slowly advancing down a hallway, and into the tiny room with no good exit. This room is brilliant. This encounter has a lot going for it, so let's break it down. If you notice the snake on the other side of this hallway, and also notice that the room ahead is much larger than the one you're in, you may try to run down the hallway and engage Lizzie in a larger room. If you do that, Lizzie will body block you. Notice how he stops just in front of the pressure plate. He does that so you get one shot at least once by the trap you've triggered behind you, and it's likely that you'll be staggered long enough for the enemy to get an attack in if you survive it. This will likely get you killed. If you wait for the enemy to come to you, you'll be safe from the trap, but you have to fight in a smaller space. Or you could run around the enemy, past the trap, and into the next room, juking the snake and luring it into a safer room. Or you could trigger the trap and let the snake walk into it, securing victory before the battle's even begun. With this much choice in both the environment and mechanics, an infinite number of different outcomes can happen, and that is what makes this encounter design in Dark Souls so memorable. They were tailored to elicit a response from players that may lead them to heart-throbbing victory or sad and utter defeat. When it's time to actually deal with the boulder, there's a great little interaction there that elevates it from the usual dreck. First of all, you gotta make it to the room where the boulders are being ejaculated from. In the middle of the room is a rotating stone platform. The balls fall and are fired in the direction you turn the pedestal with various effects. One path will break down a wall, which will allow you to free a man from a hanging cage. He has a cool and interesting name. See, he's known as Big Hat Logan, you know, on account of his huge cock. I love the design of this puzzle. Like, look at it like this. You come to this catwalk and you see a snake dude just hanging out on the wall, chilling, probably about to light up a cigarette. And these guys, they've been tormenting you all day, knocking you off of platforms and sending you to your death. If you didn't get the idea that FromSoft was trying to give you by now, they reinforce it by showing you the boulder rolling by and crushing the snake just outside the door. If you're not a mental defective, you should have put together by now that the boulder plus the snake equal bad day for Snake. But if my recent comments on my Elden Ring video are any indication, many of you are. So it's doubly impressive what FromSoft did here that even a smooth brain like you could figure it out.
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
When you get to the turntable, you'll naturally want to crush the snake with the boulder. It almost assures that you'll find Fat Cock Logan in the cage. And it may just help you solve the next puzzle, which requires you to send 5 boulders into a hole to knock down a wall, sitting just in front of a perfectly round, ball-shaped hole. Now, even a mentally handicapped goblin can figure out shapes, right? And if this game were instead a game meant for people with a brain, say, chutes and ladders, then the design team wouldn't have needed to design such an obvious puzzle. You don't need to type a comment, I already know what you're feeling. It's almost as if I'm doing it on purpose. Then you get through all this, right? And you walk into this room, and not only is there no monster in here to harass you, but there's a treasure chest here. You are rewarded with a quick reprieve from the tension and stress of dodging boulders with a safe space and some nice loot. And that's when you realize that this game was made by someone who likes to hang weights from his genitals to help enhance his focus. This chest is not a chest. It breathes. It moves around a little. This thing is a mimic. And I have never been eaten by one because I have learned that in Souls games, you always have to hit the chest. Even when you don't even know what a mimic is and you've never seen one before and you didn't even know they were in this game, you always slap the chest. If you don't believe that Miyazaki is into some sick shit, then after all of this, when you finally get to the boss fight, he made sure to hide the bonfire so most people who went through this area would have likely never found it, and would have needed to not only perfectly traverse the traps, but would also have to kill the boss, in essence, perfecting their run of this entire level to the point where they could do the whole thing at once. Wow. Wow. Fuck. Unless you look for the bonfire down there while a giant's hucking bombs at you that can knock you off the edge of the level, which I highly doubt, it's absolutely sadistic, and I love it. Because even though the boss fight can be fairly intimidating because of its size, it's much more intimidating when you know that you have to start this whole thing over again. It sharpens the senses, I find. And that is what's so great about FromSoft. They know how to give you a challenge and elicit a feeling that will either help or hinder your ability to overcome that challenge. It's a goddamn symphony. of leaped forward instead of leaping to the side. Gotta love this rolling in this game. That just disappeared into him. Did you see that?